Namaskar and welcome. You're watching News Night. Well, as nation continues to battle COVID-19 pandemic surge, Defence Ministry has joined hands with the scientific and medical fraternity. They've travelled extra mile to deal with the crisis situation. Tonight, we get you exclusive conversation with Secretary Defence on this perceived oxygen deficit situation or narrative spiraling into big crisis as the government continues to take gigantic steps to contain the impact of pandemic and much more. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and on News Night, first up, the headlines. Indian Railways swings into action. At least 47 Oxygen Express delivers more than 2,960 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen in 185 tankers to various states across the country. Armed forces join the fight to beat pandemic. At least 5,000 metric tons of liquid oxygen supplied to states. Union Health Minister takes stock of situation, visits Delhi's RML hospital. Other news, government provides more than 17.35 crore vaccine doses to states and union territories free of cost. More than 90 lakh doses still available with the states and union territories to be administered. Over 10 lakh doses in addition will be received by the states in the next 3 days. More than 11 lakh people vaccinated so far in phase 3. Delhi, Rajasthan, Telangana, Jharkhand see decline in positivity rate. In other news, Ministry of Defence steps up COVID fight in a big way. Secretary Defence, speaking exclusively to DD News, says India is not oxygen deficit. Says armed forces along with other verticals of Ministry of Defence have put their full might to mitigate the impact of second wave of COVID surge. Assures augmenting supply of medical oxygen is taking place on war footing. Statewide lockdown imposed in Rajasthan from 10th to May 24th. Himachal Pradesh to go under 10-day lockdown while 10-day curfew imposed in Haryana. New guidelines issued in West Bengal for train travel. Institutional quarantine for those coming to Delhi from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds telephonic conversation with his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison. International COVID aid continues to pour in. Germany and Denmark send COVID supplies. Health Ministry sets up a dedicated coordination cell for allocation and distribution of COVID care international relief supplies. Four-member central team led by Additional Secretary Govind Mohan calls on West Bengal Governor on post-poll violence. The team to visit violence-affected areas in Bengal. The team to submit detailed report within 48 hours. DMK Chief M.K. Stalin sworn in as the new Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. Around 33 other ministries also took oath, or ministers took oath of office in secrecy today. Prime Minister Modi congratulates M.K. Stalin on being sworn in as the Chief Minister. N. Rangaswamy also sworn in as Chief Minister of Union Territory of Puducherry for the 4th time. And in sports, BCCI announces squad for the inaugural World Test Championship final against New Zealand at the Bowl in Southampton, England. World Test Championship to take place from June 18 and 5-match Test series against England following the same. And now for the top story in detail. Well, government continues to effectively allocate and deliver COVID-19 essential supplies, particularly that were received from the global community to states and union territories. On Friday, in fact, more than 2,000 oxygen concentrators and oxygen cylinders, 13 oxygen plants were delivered as well. Also considering the requirement of remdesivir in every state and ensuring its adequate availability, Union Minister of Chemicals and Fertilizers today also announced the allocation of essential medicine remdesivir, which is made up to 16th May 2021. And this is done in order to ensure there's smooth supply of remdesivir across the country so that no patient faces difficulty in this pandemic time. We have a detailed report.
The entire government machinery has swung into action by mobilizing all possible resources in view of the surge of COVID-19 cases during the last 2 to 3 weeks. The armed forces and other organizations of the Ministry of Defence too have pitched in. On Friday, Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan visited RML Hospital in the national capital to review the preparedness for clinical management of COVID-19 cases. He also inspected the high-flow medical oxygen plant that has been set up by DRDO at the hospital. The Health Minister hailed the DRDO for setting up this plant in record time.
साल में रिकॉर्ड 6 दिन के समय के अंदर ये जो PSA प्लांट है ये DRDO की मदद से लगाया गया है और इस अकेले प्लांट की सहायता से करीब 2.5 मेट्रिक टन के करीब जो है ऑक्सीजन का जनरेशन हो रहा है। इसकी जो जनरेशन के बाद जो पाइप है उसको लिक्विड ऑक्सीजन के हमारे पाइप के साथ जोड़ दिया गया है और अस्पताल की ऑक्सीजन रिक्वायरमेंट्स को पूरा करने के लिए उसका 1/4 जो कंपोनेंट है वो अस्पताल खुद स्वयं अब इस प्लांट की मदद से पूरा कर पाएगा।
The Indian Air Force and Indian Navy have intensified their efforts to aid the civil administration in tackling the current COVID-19 situation by ferrying oxygen containers and medical equipment. As on the 7th of May 2021, the C-17 aircraft of IAF have conducted 400 sorties from within the country, including 351 to airlift 252 oxygen tankers of total capacity of 4,904 metric tons. The cities covered were Jamnagar, Bhopal, Chandigarh, Panagarh, Indore, Ranchi, Agra, Jodhpur, Begumpet, Bhubaneswar, Pune, Surat, Raipur, Udaipur, Mumbai, Lucknow, Nagpur, Gwalior, Vijayawada, Baroda, Dimapur and Hindon. A contingent of 41 naval personnel from Western Naval Command, comprising medical officers, nursing officers, paramedics and support staff, have been deputed to the PM Cares COVID Hospital, Dhanvantari in Ahmedabad. This is in addition to a 57-member naval medical team already positioned at the hospital since the 29th of April. The team is being deployed for a period of 2 months and will assist the hospital administration in handling COVID patients. In Bihar, the ASI hospital in Bihita subdivision of Patna district has been handed over to the army. The army team consists of 25 specialist doctors, nursing and paramedical staff. The facility will be converted into a 100-bed COVID hospital in the next 2 days. Soon its capacity will also be increased to 300 beds. Meanwhile, a dedicated coordination cell has been created in the Health Ministry to coordinate the receipt and allocation of foreign COVID relief material. Cargo clearance and deliveries are facilitated without delay in coordination with various agencies. The government said that the global aid being sent to India is being effectively and properly allocated and dispatched to states and union territories by the central government.
This is the standard operating procedure that we had devised early on for receiving donations or gifts from abroad. That is that missions on receipt of information on offers of donation or gifts from foreign governments forward them to ABM. And then missions communicate to the donors the priority list and the threshold items. And as I told you, consignee is to be IRCS. And MEA shares that with MOHFW through the coordination cell.
Every consignment is tracked and is ensured that it is properly used in those locations. Let me reassure our foreign correspondents that not even one consignment has remained at the airport or the seaport. They have been directly loaded from the airport to the distribution locations. In real time, it goes and gets distributed, given to that location for right use, immediate use.
As a matter of fact, Delhi Safdarjung Hospital on Friday received ventilators, oxygen cylinders, BiPAP machines and oxygen concentrators and other medical aid from Germany, France, United Kingdom, United States, Ireland, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait and Russia. While Lady Harding Hospital has received medical equipment from Russia, United Kingdom, UAE, USA, France, Ireland and Romania.
I wish to extend my gratitude for all the help coming from different countries all over the world in respect of providing ventilators, oxygen cylinders, BiPAP machines, oxygen concentrators, pulse oximeters, PPE kits, N95 masks, and drugs, antiviral drugs and other drugs from all over the world with their great generosity, and that too in a short span of time.
जिन देशों के इक्विपमेंट हमारे पास पहुँचे हैं वो हैं रशिया, यूनाइटेड किंगडम, आबू धाबी, UAE, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, फ्रांस, यूनाइटेड किंगडम अगेन, आयरलैंड, रोमानिया. सो और भी देशों के इक्विपमेंट जो हैं मैंने और अस्पतालों में दिल्ली में और भी जगह पूरे देश में पहुँचे हैं. ये जो है ये बहुत यूज़फुल रहा है हमारे लिए.
The government said, although there is a decline in the number of COVID cases in some states, there is no room for complacency in the battle against the pandemic. Member Health Niti Aayog Dr. V.K. Paul once again cautioned the people against self-administration of remdesivir without the guidance of doctors. Dr. Paul also said that reports of a single dose of coronavirus vaccine are encouraging. However, approval to dose vaccines will be based on scientific data.
It is very promising. अगर एक single dose से भी प्रोटेक्शन जैसा उन्होंने बताया है, इट इज़ वेरी एनकरेजिंग, इट मेक्स अस फील वेरी ऑप्टिमिस्टिक. आप ये भी जानते होंगे कि J&J वैक्सीन जो है वो भी एक सिंगल डोज वैक्सीन है, जॉनसन एंड जॉनसन वैक्सीन. तो सिंगल डोज आने से हमारी स्पीड ऑफ वैक्सीनेशन तेज़ हो सकती है. उसी स्टॉक पाइल से दुगने लोगों को हम दे सकेंगे. ये एक बहुत अच्छी डेवलपमेंट है. बट द मेरिट एंड द प्रोसेसिंग ऑफ their request as and when it comes will be based on scientific data and information.
Besides overcoming all hurdles and finding new solutions, Indian Railways is continuing its journey of bringing relief by delivering liquid medical oxygen to various states across the country. So far, the Indian Railways has delivered more than 2,960 metric tons of LMO in 185 tankers to various states across the country. 47 oxygen expresses have already completed their journey so far. Till the time of this release, 174 metric tons had been offloaded in Maharashtra, 729 metric tons in Uttar Pradesh, 249 metric tons in Madhya Pradesh, 305 metric tons in Haryana, 123 metric tons in Telangana, and 1,334 metric tons in Delhi. Meanwhile, considering the requirement for remdesivir in every state and ensuring its adequate availability, Union Minister for Chemical and Fertilizers D.V. Sadanan Gowda announced the allocation of remdesivir made up to the 16th of this month. This would ensure smooth supply of the antiviral injection across the country. A total of 53 lakh vials of remdesivir have been allocated to 36 states and union territories for the period from 21st of April to the 16th of May. Bureau Report, DD India.
And in related development, the Supreme Court on Friday pulled up the centre after the Delhi government complained it didn't receive 700 metric tons of oxygen even after the court's order. The top court cautioned the centre and asserted that it has to give 700 metric tons of oxygen to Delhi every day till this order is reviewed or modified. And while hearing the matter, the apex court made some pertinent observations earlier on Thursday, telling the central government that Delhi must get at least 700 tons of oxygen every day to meet the needs of COVID-19 patients. The top court also said it has constituted an expert panel to conduct an oxygen audit to understand the need of oxygen of every state. And in focus tonight, we're going to talk about how forces have stepped up in joining the COVID fight back. And this amidst when international aid, COVID aid also continues to pour in. An overall attempt to refurbish the existing COVID care medical infrastructure. Government continues to firm up the COVID care infrastructure. And we have on News Night tonight the panel joining us on the show tonight. Let's quickly introduce our panel for the show. Lieutenant General Dr. V. Ravi Shankar, he's the CEO and Medical Director and Consultant Cardiac Surgeon from Leelavari Hospital in Mumbai. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. And very glad to welcome Dr. N.N. Mathur, Director, Lady Haring Medical College. Dr. Mathur, good evening to you. Good evening to you. Namaskar. I'm going to start with Dr. Mathur very quickly. Dr. Mathur, we're getting many queries about this whole fair psychosis, if I'm allowed to use this word, that there is this massive oxygen scarcity still. International aid continues to pour in. Government is doing everything in its might to ensure that there is last door delivery as far as vaccines and these essential COVID care medicines are concerned. Just to clear it once and for all on record, the allocation of the aid that we have been getting, how is it really, is it first of all reaching the doorstep of these hospitals, for example, Lady Hardinge Medical College, and how has this really added to the existing infrastructure, making it more robust?
So the international aid started pouring in last week, somewhere around Friday night, and we at Lady Hardinge have received international aid from the countries like Russia, UK, United States of America, Romania, United Arab Emirates, mainly Abu Dhabi, and France. And the other countries have also contributed and given the aid, and that has gone to different other hospitals, both central government and state government hospitals. So much so that the aids, for example, in Lady Hardinge, which came on Friday or in Saturday morning, was deployed immediately, and it was divided into two. One was our old facility, which we are running from where our main COVID patients are, and one our future COVID facility, which is going to come up in 2 or 3 days time, which is 240 bedded. So the one which was to be deployed in the old hospital got deployed overnight, and there were some challenges because some minor issues like they were from different countries and technicians and all.
So you're saying that there is, Dr. Mathur, you're saying that there is real-time allocation. There is real-time allocation of these consignments. So why do you think there is this fear psychosis that is spread, that these essentials are not reaching the right place?
Oh, as far as Lady Hardinge is concerned, it reached at the right place and it was deployed at the right place. In fact, we have been very proactive in that, and we have even taken the documentary proof of it and given it to the
Let me take a quick comment on the same question from Dr. V. Ravi Shankar. Your assessments, joining from Lilavati Hospital in Mumbai. Mumbai being one of the worst affected, Maharashtra in fact. How has this changed the whole scenario to greater extent for better?
Yeah, good evening. A lot of aid has been coming in, and we also get a lot of messages from various corporates that they want to donate oxygen concentrators to us. Frankly, there isn't much of an issue with oxygen availability in Mumbai. We have not faced it so far because the BMC administration and the state government have taken proactive steps right from the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. And almost all the hospitals get their quota of liquid oxygen. We get it twice a day, and we have 2 big tanks which are total 8 metric tons. At any time, we have a buffer of 4 to 5 metric tons, which lasts for 2 days. We have one of the highest number of ICU beds in Bombay, 45, out of which nearly 3/4 have got patients on ventilator. The consumption is high, but then we have modified our techniques and reduced the high consumption methodologies like high flow nasal oxygen. And we have also bought a couple of oxygen concentrators for a rainy day. So as such, the issue now, what we are facing is availability of certain drugs, and that's mainly remdesivir and tocilizumab. Tocilizumab is just not available, neither is itolizumab. Remdesivir we are getting from the FDA regular supply. It's on a day-to-day basis. So we are managing to treat all our patients in the way we should.
Dr. Mathur, this scenario is a little different in Delhi, would you say, as compared to Mumbai? For example, Mumbai doesn't really is staring at this oxygen scarcity that certain section of certain media is trying to, but in actuality, the situation is different on ground, as you're saying, that maybe the help might reach late, but the help is reaching, and things have changed in the last few weeks.
Yes, scenario is almost similar at all the places. see, the rise in number of cases was so steep that any arrangement would have fallen flat. But the rectifying measures were taken immediately, so much so that overnight the oxygen concentrator plants have been designed by DRDO and have been put up in different hospitals. Ours is going to come up in 2 days, which will reduce the oxygen requirement by 25%. It will be put into the system, and each oxygen plant will decrease the requirement. You must remember that oxygen requirement has increased in each hospital 10 times the normal times. If it was 0.5 metric ton, it has become 5 metric ton. If it was 0.6, it has become 6 metric ton. So the oxygen requirement has, in COVID patient, he requires a lot of oxygen. So there had been tremendous load onto the system, and all the patients came all of a sudden. So any system will be overwhelmed.
Are you saying the systems were overwhelmed, Dr. Mathur, because of the scale and the expanse of the problem? And there was, it was peaking at a very fast rate, because of which in certain states the system crumbled for a while, but then the situation is limping back to normal. Because let's face the reality, sir. Every day there are so many SOS calls, and people are still, at least in Delhi, frantically looking for ventilators, hospital beds, the drugs that you talked about, and all of that. Dr. Mathur.
Yes, the system was overwhelmed, as rightly said. Some drugs were scarce, but these are not drugs. These are not some miraculous drugs, or these are not the drugs which are magic stick, so to say. They are useful. They are useful in some cases, but not all. What had happened was, in cases of drugs, there was some people we have heard from the newspapers have stockpiled, or there was hoarding of some medicines, which was unfortunate. It should have never happened, because these drugs are not to be used in each and every case, and wherever it is to be used, that much scarcity would have not been there if it was properly, distributed. Anyhow, now the drugs have also come from abroad. The foreign aid has helped us. Not that we didn't have the capacity. We had built the capacity over 1.5 years, but because of the steep rise, the requirement went up so high all of a sudden that any country would require some help from outside. And once we are free to, lend our these equipment which has come, this can go to some other place or some other state or some other country.
Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, what else should be done? What else should be done? There is there is absolutely no doubt in the fact that the way almost all ministries, sir, you would agree, in their capacity are collaborating with each other to do their bit, from health to railways to defense to social welfare. But what else needs to be done as a medical practitioner to see to it that at least we get closer to the time when we see the dip in curve?
Yeah, if you take the issue of oxygen, Delhi is a different ball game. It is not an industrial estate. Maharashtra is a different ball game. To be very frank, there is no dearth of oxygen generation in this country. It's more than enough. The whole issue is transportation. Many of these factories are in the northeast. They travel by trucks which travel at a speed of 30 kilometers an hour because the gas is combustible. Many drivers have left because they were COVID positive. So all these have been taken into account, and the government has pulled in the Oxygen Express. One of the other reasons is the steel industry and the refineries have been asked to ramp up their oxygen production, which they are capable of, and it has been diverted to medical oxygen. What we fail to realize is some of the industries in Gujarat manufacture oxygen cylinders, and they need just 2 tons of oxygen per day, which also has apparently missed the eyes of the authorities. and they can produce 35 to 40,000 cylinders a month. There are two big factories. So these are the places where we need to look into a little more deeply. The government, DRDO, is establishing close to 500 medical oxygen plants, and one of the technologies they use is what we have been using in the light combat aircraft called Tejas, which
Yes,
is
sir.
onboard oxygen generation. And I think 5 have been authorized to Delhi, including Lady Hardinge, AIIMS, and the Safdarjung Hospital. What the government is doing, I think it's doing pretty well. It
Okay.
has managed to, open up the borders and ask for, replenishments from all over the world, and they have been pouring in. So I'm sure this is just a question of a week, 10 days before everything normalizes. And I'm hoping the COVID also plateaus off by that time. However, we should not be caught off guard, and there is a threat of a third wave. This is the time to do it. If the government is establishing 500 oxygen plants, it's going to take about 3 months, and I think that will go a long way in ensuring that the public doesn't suffer.
Okay, Dr. Mathur, wait 10 seconds. I need to wrap it up because Dr. Ravi Shankar spoke about the way we are effectively dealing with the second wave in progress, and how well prepared have we learned our lessons, because now we are looking at third wave as well.
So the infrastructure we built in the first wave helped us in the second wave, and infrastructure which we are developing in the second wave will help us in the second wave, as well as if, God forbid, the third wave comes.
Let's hope that there is no third wave and we come out of this nightmarish second wave very soon. Thank you very much, Lieutenant General V. Ravi Shankar, CEO, Medical Director from Lilavari Hospital, Mumbai. Thank you so much, sir. And also many thanks, Dr. N. Mathur, Director, Lady Hardinge Medical College. Thank you, both of you. And staying with this, which happens to be our top focus, we're talking about the COVID fight back. In fact, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh had he has invoked special provisions and has granted emergency financial powers to armed forces to fight the recent COVID-19 surge. Tri-services and all verticals of the Ministry of Defence are working in tandem with the government to not only refurbish and firm up the current COVID care apparatus, but also augment the supply of medical oxygen, plus developing new technologies to mitigate the impact. Secretary Defence Dr. Ajay Kumar spoke exclusively on our signature show DD Dialogue on how Ministry of Defence is extending all possible assistance to tide over the crisis. Here is a quick look. Give us an overview as far as the armed forces have joined hands not only with the medical fraternity but with the scientific fraternity to augment the existing infrastructure, especially when it comes to meeting the ever increasing oxygen supply demand.
So let me first of all say that we are in one of a century kind of a crisis. The scale at which this pandemic is coming to us, I don't think anything like this has happened in the last 100 or 200 years. Government is doing everything that is possible. The whole of government is working to fight COVID, and Ministry of Defence, Armed Forces, DRDO, Defence PSUs, cantonment boards, NCC, all wings of defence have pitched in with whatever contributions they can make in this field to join and fight this corona pandemic. First of all, I would like to say that our armed forces have always been available to the country when a crisis happens, and this time has been no different. Indian Air Force has been carrying out sorties which to bring MD oxygen tankers, cylinders, which has reduced the time to less than half. And nearly 400 plus sorties have been done domestically by Air Force planes within the country, and over 50 sorties have been done outside the country. A lot of requirement, which this is supplemented by Indian Navy, who has fanned out in all the neighboring countries in the Middle East, Asia, in East Asia, Bangkok, Singapore, Bahrain, Qatar, from where these ships, Indian Navy ships, are today bringing tankers, not only for the government, but for any other persons. They are bringing tankers for state governments, they are bringing tankers for industry. Army has pitched in a big way in terms of creating medical infrastructure, providing medical manpower, earmarking their own hospitals, earmarking beds and other infrastructure in their own hospitals for civilians. Today, we have in the armed forces medical system nearly 10,000 COVID beds.
This will go up?
And
AFMS is working
yes,
on war
and
footing.
this is continuously going up. We are, of course, I will talk about the new hospitals that are being created by DRDO.
Open for civilians as far as
Yes,
forces veterans?
So these out of these COVID beds, practically all hospitals are open beds for civilians also. But also I must tell you that Army has made sure that its own
are well taken
armed
care of.
forces personnel, their families, ex-servicemen are taken care of in the need of crisis, in this moment of crisis. DRDO has set up several hospitals in the country based on the request from state government. You are aware of, in Delhi 500 bed hospital has been started, in Ahmedabad 900 bed hospital has been started. In Lucknow the other day a 500 bed facility has got started. In Varanasi facility is getting started sometime next week. In Bangalore facility has got started. In several places today hospitals are being built by armed forces and DRDO to augment the availability. The biggest problem has been that of oxygen.
Yes.
And to augment the availability of oxygen, armed forces have started procuring. In fact, they have already placed and the 23 oxygen generating plants, and we are expecting those plants to come anytime shortly from
the
Germany.
Ones that have come from Germany also? Yes.
And those will get installed in different locations in the country. These are mobile plants and they can be moved to wherever the shortage is there. Armed forces are also in process of procuring 23 other plants. These are big plants which will be stationary plants.
On the question of augmenting oxygen production capacity, now this narrative that we have been hugely oxygen deficit country and people are dying because of lack of oxygen supply rather than the lack of other COVID care, the kind of narrative that is there. Could you please on record clarify this once and for all? The government has reiterated there has never been any oxygen shortage for that matter. It is just that judicially it has to be used and the logistics part of it, because armed forces is also doing its bit in terms of logistically reaching out to the states.
I think when we talk of oxygen deficit, we must realize.
Are we oxygen deficit?
No, we are not oxygen deficit in the country. That's the point I am saying. When people talk of oxygen deficit, I think what they are talking is whether the patient and the hospital is getting oxygen. And what it has more been a problem of being able to make the oxygen that is available in the country to the patient. There is need to augment the availability of oxygen in the hospitals. And for this there has been, like I was mentioning, from several countries, over 60 flights and over half a dozen ships have brought oxygen cylinders and tankers to this country in the last 1 week to 10 days, all in one short period, which is augmenting this availability of tankers. If you see, government has started special trains, oxygen expresses, which are today making sure that oxygen filled cylinders are reached to the destination faster than ever before. And like I mentioned, Air Force is doing 30, 40 sorties every day, carrying empty tankers to the generating points of oxygen, so that those could be filled up and brought. So, I think what has been really required is being able to do this logistics of transporting oxygen faster, and to this government has geared up the infrastructure as never before. We must also realize the scale of the problem. You see, most of the hospitals typically would have, let us say if a hospital had 20 beds for which it had oxygen support, today 200 patients are coming seeking oxygen support. So, the demand in the hospitals has also increased. And let me also say that in some quarters there are reports that some people resorted to hoarding or and I think that has in some ways accentuated the problem. But
so
the
that's
good point is that
yes.
the government as a whole and armed force, let me say Defence Ministry has put all its might behind this effort to supplement the efforts of the government to create the logistics for oxygen, and slowly the problem is getting solved.
So, Secretary Defence, you're saying that situation has by and large been brought under control, especially the way various arms not only of the Defence Ministry, but the convergences and collaborations and coordinations amongst various ministries, particularly Health and Defence Ministry and Ministry of Railways. The situation, we call it crisis, has been largely brought under control?
Ministry of Home Affairs is, is the ministry which coordinates the overall government effort, and Ministry of Defence has pooled in with its might to support Ministry of Home Affairs and Government of India at large with all its might. And like I have mentioned to you, several steps have been taken by Defence Ministry and its services and organizations, which are all helping mitigate it, and we will not stop till this problem is under control.
Well, moving on, meanwhile, countries continue to send medical equipment and other materials to support India's efforts to tackle the COVID pandemic. A consignment of aid from Germany also landed at Delhi airport today in the afternoon. And staying with the international aid that continues to pour in, Denmark has also sent shipment of 53 ventilators to India. Ministry of External Affairs in a tweet said, and I quote, "Taking forward our ties that is based on historical links and shared democratic values, thank our friend Denmark for shipment of 53 ventilators," unquote. And amid surmounting pressure to impose full lockdown in Karnataka from various quarters, Chief Minister Yadurappa on Friday hinted that a complete shutdown in the state of Karnataka might have been important to continue to basically contain the COVID surge. In fact, here's a report which talks about how other states have also stepped up their containment measures, including imposition of curfew.
All the states and union territories across country are taking preventive measures to contain the surge in second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. With a stringent lockdown and strict curfew measures imposed in the past few weeks, some states have managed to contain the spread of the coronavirus and are now reporting less number of new cases. States and union territories including Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Telangana and Jharkhand, which were reporting remarkably high cases, have now gradually started showing a decline in COVID-19 cases.
ये राज्य हैं महाराष्ट्र, उत्तर प्रदेश, दिल्ली, राजस्थान, छत्तीसगढ़, गुजरात, मध्य प्रदेश, तेलंगाना एवं झारखंड। तो आप देखेंगे इन सब में जो 7 डे मूविंग एवरेज है जो केसेस का, जो कि एवरेज आउट कर देता है, डे टू डे वेरिएशन को एवरेज आउट कर देता है। तो यदि हम 7 डे मूविंग एवरेज देखते हैं तो इन सब राज्यों में केसेस में थोड़ी बढ़ोतरी हुई और उसके बाद अब प्लेटो हो रहा है।
The national capital Delhi in registering less than 20,000 daily cases in the past few days. In the last 24 hours, Delhi has reported 19,832 fresh cases of COVID-19. During this time, Delhi's positivity rate has dropped below 25 to 24.29%. Meanwhile, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on Friday held a high-level meeting to review the COVID-19 situation in the national capital. Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodiya, Delhi Health Minister, Principal Health Secretary and other officials were present in the meeting. The Delhi government has also decided to vaccinate media persons and bear the cost for the same. Vaccination will be done in media houses. The central government on Friday provided 577 metric tons of oxygen to Delhi. Meanwhile, Delhi police on Friday seized 96 oxygen concentrators from Khan Chacha restaurant in Khan Market in the national capital. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath held a meeting with Team 9 constituted by the state government to deal with the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic and issued important directions to members to combat the spread of the coronavirus. The number of active COVID-19 cases in Uttar Pradesh has decreased by more than 56,000. Also, the availability of oxygen in the hospital in Uttar Pradesh has been increased to 20 metric ton from Thursday to Friday. The Uttarakhand government has extended summer leave from May 7 to June 12 to all colleges in the state due to rise in COVID-19 cases. Fines have been imposed on more than 2 lakh people in the state for not abiding the COVID-19 norms. As many as 25 people have been arrested in the state for black marketing of medicines. In Madhya Pradesh, the state government has launched a scheme to provide free treatment to poor COVID-19 patients. In a meeting, Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan said the state has to be fully prepared for the third wave of COVID-19. He added that the committee will be constituted for the same.
हमको तीसरी लहर के मुकाबले के लिए तैयार रहना है और एक समिति हम बना दें विशेषज्ञों की, विशेषकर जो बच्चों के इलाज की विशेषज्ञता वाली टीम है वो हम एक बनाए. अभी बच्चों के इलाज की कितनी व्यवस्था हमारे पास.
Maharashtra, which is reporting the maximum number of COVID-19 cases in the country, has received an approval to import remdesivir drug. The state has received 9 lakh doses of vaccines from the central government, out of which 8 lakh doses have already been given to the people. The state health minister has demanded a large consignment of vaccines against COVID-19 and oxygen from the centre. Gurugram has been registering the highest number of new COVID-19 cases in Haryana. State Home Minister Anil Vij expressed hope that ongoing lockdown in Haryana could help curb the outbreak of coronavirus cases. He also highlighted the importance of continuous running of oxygen plants.
एक प्लांट भी जब रुक जाता है तो क्षेत्र के सारे लोगों की सांसें रुक जाती हैं. इनका लगातार चलते रहना और ऑक्सीजन सप्लाई करना बहुत आवश्यक है.
Weekend corona curfew will remain in place in Chandigarh city from 5 a.m. on May 8 to May 10 5 a.m. District Magistrate Sandeep S. Barar has however said there will be no restriction on interstate movement of essential and non-essential items during this period. Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan has said that the state will go for complete lockdown from Saturday to till 16 May. As many as 25,000 police personnel will be deployed to monitor restrictions in the state. Legal actions will be taken against those escalating fake messages regarding COVID-19 on social media. The Chief Minister said the free ration kit distribution to continue for migrant workers. Meanwhile, Karnataka Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa has also announced complete lockdown from 10 May to 24 May in the state in view of alarming rise in COVID-19 cases and related fatalities. West Bengal is seeing partial lockdown as well. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has written a letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi requesting supply of medical oxygen. Mamata Banerjee has demanded assistance of 550 metric tons of oxygen. Newly sworn in Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin held a review meeting with collectors from all districts on measures that can be undertaken to curb rise in COVID-19 cases in the state. Post taking office, he also announced a COVID-19 pandemic timed relief of 4,000 rupees for the people of the state. The first installment of 2,000 rupees will be provided in the month of May. To meet the shortage of oxygen in Rajasthan, a consignment of 100 oxygen concentrators are arriving in the state from Russia. A total of 1,250 oxygen concentrators for the estate from Russia will be arriving by the end of this week. In Goa, Chief Minister Pramod Sawant has announced a curfew of 15 days starting from Sunday. A number of places across the country are seeing corona vaccine drive being carried out in full swing. The country has from 1st May started giving vaccine to the people above 18 years. Meanwhile, in Guwahati, Assam, people above the age of 18 too have started receiving the vaccination. More than 16.49 crore vaccines have been administered since the start of the third phase of vaccination till 8 a.m. on Friday. In this manner, the central government has made available 17.35 crore vaccines to states and union territories free of cost. States have a cumulative 90 lakh vaccines that are yet to be distributed. In the coming 3 days, more than 10 lakh doses will be given to states and union territories. In this manner, states and union territories, with the help of the centre and continuing with their battle against COVID-19. Bureau Report, DD India.
And it has been noticed in some instances that citizens that had booked their appointment for COVID vaccination through the CoWIN portal but did not actually go for vaccination on the scheduled date. They have received notification through SMS that a vaccine dose has been administered to them. Upon examination, it has been found to occur largely on account of the vaccinator wrongly marking the citizen as vaccinated. That is, this is an instance of a data entry error by the vaccinator. Now, let's try and understand what it means. It means that in order to minimize such errors and the subsequent inconvenience that is causing to the citizens, the CoWIN system is now introducing a new feature of 4-digit security code in the CoWIN application from tomorrow. Now, after verification of the beneficiary has been found as eligible, before administering the vaccine dose, the verifier or the vaccinator will ask beneficiary about his or her 4-digit code and then enter the same in the CoWIN system to correctly record the vaccination status, and this new feature will be applicable only for citizens who have done an online booking for a vaccination slot. Meanwhile, India has registered 4,14,188 new COVID cases, while 3,31,507 patients have been recovered in the past 24 hours. And as per the Union Health Ministry, 3,31,507 recoveries were recorded in the last 24 hours, taking the cumulative total of recovered patients to 1,76,12,351. And with this, the recovery rate currently stands at 81.95%. India's total active caseload stands at over 36.45 lakh today. The country's present active caseload consists of 16.96% of the total positive case. The fatality rate stands at 1.09%. In other news, US Vice President Kamala Harris delivered a message of solidarity with the people of India. She said US is determined to help India, which had sent assistance to US when US was passing through a bad phase in fight against COVID-19. US Vice President said that US is supporting India as a friend and as a member of the Quad Group.
India and the United States have the greatest number of COVID-19 cases in the world. At the beginning of the pandemic, when our hospital beds were stretched, India sent assistance. And today, we are determined to help India in its hour of need. We do this as friends of India, as members of the Asian Quad, and as part of a global community. I believe that if we continue to work together across nations and sectors, we will all get through this together.
And Foreign Secretary Harsh V. Shringla addressed the United Nations Security Council at the briefing on upholding multilateralism in the UN-centered international system. Foreign Secretary made a strong pitch for reforms at United Nations Security Council to better reflect the current realities.
Multilateral institutions must be made more accountable to their membership. They must be open and welcoming to a diversity of viewpoints and cognizant of new voices. The Council must be made more representative of developing countries if it is to continue to engender trust and confidence in the ability to provide leadership to the entire world. It can deliver effective solutions only if it gives a voice to the voiceless rather than zealously guarding the status quo of the mind.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday had a telephonic conversation with his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison, and during the conversation Prime Minister Modi conveyed his appreciation for the prompt and generous support extended by Australian government and people for India's fight against the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. Both the leaders agreed on the need to ensure affordable and equitable access to vaccines as well as medicines for containing COVID globally. Prime Minister Modi sought Australia's support for the initiative taken at the World Trade Organization by India and South Africa to seek a temporary waiver under TRIPS in this context. Now, both the Prime Ministers took note of the progress made in India-Australia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership since the virtual summit held on 4th of June last year. They also discussed ways to further strengthen cooperation and foster people-to-people ties. And during the conversation, the leaders even discussed regional issues and reiterated the importance of working together for a rule-based international order and a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Union Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs Hardeep Singh Puri on Friday has clarified as to why the government is still going ahead with the Central Vista project and the new Parliament building. Now, in a series of tweets, the Union Minister slammed Congress, the opposition party. He said, and I quote, "The party's discourse on Central Vista is bizarre." He went on to add that the cost of Central Vista is about 20,000 crore rupees over several years. The government of India has allocated nearly twice that amount for vaccination. Puri added that India's healthcare budget for the current financial year was over 3 lakh crore rupees and that the centre knows its priorities. Hitting out at the Congress, Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri in another tweet said, and I quote, "There are hundreds of projects being executed by various departments. Governance hasn't come to standstill, unlike the Congress's times of policy paralysis." Central Vista, remember, he said, is just another ongoing project. It's only the Congress that's obsessed about it, nobody else, unquote. And giving out the details, the Union Minister also said that till now only projects for new Parliament building and rejuvenation of Central Vista Avenue have been awarded at the estimated cost of 862 crore rupees and 477 crore rupees respectively, reiterating that there are many components in the Central Vista project which are spread over several years. Hardeep Singh Puri said the Congress wants to distract people from monumental governance failures in the states by spreading lies. It is therefore indulging in cheap politics despite knowing this project creates direct and indirect employment for thousands of skilled, semi-skilled and unskilled workers in these times. Shifting focus to West Bengal, 4-member central team led by Additional Secretary Govind Mohan called on West Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar at Raj Bhavan in Kolkata. The Ministry of Home Affairs team held an hour-long meeting with the governor. The team also visited violence-affected areas in Bengal and talked to affected people. The team has been asked by the Home Ministry to submit a detailed report within 48 hours. Ministry of Home Affairs on Thursday sought a report from the governor on the law and order situation in the state. And now let's take a look at some news, national news in our next Nat Wrap segment.
DMK Chief M.K. Stalin on Friday was sworn in as the new Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. The oath of the office was administered to him by Governor Banwari Lal Purohit at Raj Bhavan. Around 33 other ministers also took the oath of office in secrecy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated M.K. Stalin on being sworn in as the Chief Minister. All India NR Congress Chief N. Rangaswamy took oath as the Chief Minister of Puducherry on Friday. The oath was administered to him by Lieutenant Governor Tamilisai Sundararajan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi took to Twitter to congratulate him. He wrote, "I would like to congratulate N. Rangaswamy ji on taking oath as Puducherry CM. Best wishes for the tenure ahead." In Amritsar, a major fire broke out at a dry fruit processing unit on Friday, causing major damage to the unit. The fire department and police were immediately informed by the local residents. 4 fire brigades were immediately rushed to the spot to douse the fire. The unit was closed and there were no injuries reported in the incident. The nation today celebrated the 160th birth anniversary of the greatest writer of all times and a well-known freedom fighter, Rabindranath Tagore. Born in Kolkata to an affluent family, Tagore won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913 for Gitanjali. He is well known for penning down the national anthem of India. The title of Gurudev was given to him by Mahatma Gandhi.
And before we wrap up, a quick news coming in from the world of cricket. The All India Selection Committee on Friday, in fact, announced a 20-men Indian squad which will be playing the ICC World Test Championship final against New Zealand. The 20-men squad will also be playing a 5-match test series against England. The announcement was made by BCCI on Twitter. The team will be led by skipper Virat Kohli, while Ajkini Rahane will be the vice captain. The team also includes big names like Rohit Sharma and Cheteshwar Pujara. And with that, it's time to wind up this edition of Newsnight. We'll be back tomorrow at 9. But before we wrap up, Mask Up India, a polite reminder, even if you're indoors, masking helps. Thank you so much for tuning in. Namaskar.